Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art.
All right, welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art. And sorry, Todd, I was just down some pizza here a little while ago.
I just saw that. I was like, good time in there, brother. What's up, everybody?
All right, so what are we doing today, Todd?
So, the breaking down the video seemed to be something people like to see, and this video that you're going to play is one that it's maybe the most popular dog behavior video on the internet. I mean, 100 million views or something close to that. But I use it for my clients because I think it holds a ton of lessons. Like, it's multiple layers deep of lessons. So it's not very long. It's about 2.5 minutes. So I want to start with that, and then we'll break it down. You tell me what you see and what you get out of it, and I'll tell you what I see and what I get out of it.
All right, let me go ahead and... Now, for those of you that are on Apple Podcast, you can go to our YouTube and watch the video there, or if you follow us on Spotify, you can also watch the video there since we load it as a video on YouTube. How do I make this full? Oh, wait, hang on. Let me go back to full screen. Here we go.
Jetzt werden wir gleich sehen, wie eine Mami ihre Welpen berührt. Und fertig. Und alle plumpsen. Einer kommt jetzt wieder. Schlechte Idee.
Temperament?
Yes.
Ich möchte das auch können. Was ziemlich.
What happened here? Why is it showing all these ads?
Oh.
How do I take these off? What's up with all these ads? Oh, it's part of the video. They added it on there. All right. How did it play? Did it play okay?
Oh, it played perfect from what I could see. Yeah, that was great, and it was good that we let it play through. Yeah, they're speaking German. Can you understand what they're saying?
A little bit. There was one moment where he goes "fertig," which means like finish, like she finished, but she wasn't finished.
Hold on just a second.
I'm gonna see if I can get this to go back. Skip ad. There we go. All right. Is there anything that you want me to pause it on?
Yeah.
Start right here.
Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, for starters, I think the context is we have a litter of puppies that are in the stage of being weaned, which, really is going to be your first real correction. I mean, it's where it starts to, mom stops allowing everything and really start to see some corrections. And the first thing, if I point out I want to ask people is what's the first strategy that the mother dog chooses? So go ahead and play it.
Okay.
Wait, so you know what? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Like,
Right. So right now the mother dog's walking into this room,
and I'll
and
pause it right after because I know I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, but
okay.
we'll see.
All right. I can't see it anymore, Art.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sharing anymore. Sorry, my bad. Let me go back. Okay.
Yeah, now I can. It's good.
Okay.
Jetzt werden die Cavs sehen, wie eine Mami ihre Welpen berührt.
Now it's a little jumpy, but it's all right.
What's that? Now it's choppy?
Now it's a little bit jumpy. Yeah, the first time was real smooth. Right there, stop it.
Yeah. So first thing I noticed, she was doing avoidance first.
Yep.
She's avoiding. That doesn't work. And then she has to address it. So, you know, it's almost like when people talk about like when a dog jumps, like you turn your back, you're avoiding the situation. That usually doesn't work. So, you know, she's basically telling us like you can't avoid the situation, meaning she's moving away because she comes in, she hangs a left, and
Yeah.
they follow her. Then she goes to the right, and they follow her. And then then she stands still, and then she starts to move a little forward, which is what we'll see.
What does this mean to people? Is how I also showed is a couple of things here. There's, like I said, there's kind of layers to this. Is one is the first reaction, even with a lot of dogs, to unwanted behavior directed towards you with excitement is to do nothing, is to ignore, right? Even in the dog world that you see this. And so the first reaction that is easy to take in the presence of unwanted behavior is nothing, you know, because it's a conscious choice of it's no touch, no talk, no eye contact, you know, as you described it, avoidance. And the other thing I like about this that I use to describe to my clients is, does it work? It doesn't. Right. And here's a mother dog, arguably 100 times more experienced than, you know, the people are ever going to be, making a strategy change right in the middle of it.
Right.
You know, everybody asked the question is, you know, how I even got this the other day in talking with somebody is they felt anxious about getting it wrong. And it's a trainer. And it's the same thing we've talked about. Like in the middle of doing something, they feel like, you know, making a decision change means they got it wrong. But I use this as an example to point out, but yeah, it's not wrong. It's just sometimes it wasn't the right call for that moment, but done consciously, it's just you shift to something else, just like this very experienced mother does.
All right, let's keep playing.
Stop it.
Yeah. By the way, you keep an eye on this one. That's the one she corrects the first one. And he's the one, or she is the one that keeps moving forward throughout the video. At least.
Oh, is it?
So, because there's one that
I would love to have them had colored collars on to be able to see.
Well, we can just follow. Can you see my cursor by any chance?
I can.
Oh, perfect. So like this dog right here, it's either one of these two is the one that is the most forward, the one that kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit. And by the way, you can see the pack positions through all this stuff too.
Oh yeah. I use this right here to show a couple of things. That a correction is about the element of surprise. It's a startle factor, right? It's about creating a startle, and that expression on that puppy's face is all pretty ideal. Like that, whoa, got it. Like it's really knowing that you got exactly what you needed to get. Nothing more needs to be done, but then waiting. Now, the other thing I'll typically do with my clients is I'll go into like, how many times do you say no, down, off, stop, quit it, leave it? You know, I kind of categorize that into one thing as the no behaviors. And I'll ask them, I go, what's the longest amount of time you've ever spent in doing that? You know, and I go like a second, 2 seconds. And they're like, well, yeah. And I go, okay, so we're at 25 seconds on this video. She's applied the touch, which to me is the first step of a correction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, how long is the video? And people go 2 minutes and 39 seconds. And I'll hit play. So I hadn't hit play. Just to show that the rest is follow through. And then I ask him, I go, how long have you ever waited to calm your dog down after that first step? It's hard to track the puppies. We lose them.
Fertig.
There's another thing. Do me a favor. Go back to right after she touches that puppy. Right there. Now, check this out. What do you think of this? Hit play. Let it play. That. She looks back at the owner almost as if she's making sure it was okay that she did that.
Mm-hmm.
She does that look back like, are you sure that's cool?
So I'll play that again real quick.
Go back a little further. It's right after she touches the puppy.
Oh, yeah.
You see it? Like an ad looks like or something flashes on there. But yeah, I've watched that a lot and seen her look back like she's like, all right, you cool? All right, we'll finish this.
I think the other interesting thing here is like you mentioned the follow through. Like she follows through, and there's some that she doesn't really like hurt that even the distance. We talk about energy. This is energy, right? This is getting the dog to settle without having to make physical contact. But there was one that she did have to make physical contact to kind of get her point across, and then she didn't have to be physical with it anymore.
One of the things that I learned early on and was pointed out early on is how observant dogs are of the situation at hand. Right? We always talk about you feed the calmest dog first, blah, blah, blah. But the reason being, if you look at these puppies, they're watching the other dogs. So they learn what to do and what not to do by what happens to the other dogs by what they do. There's a lot of observation that goes on in these groups. And I think owners don't put enough emphasis on that, of being watched by everybody. Yeah. Go ahead and hit play. Fertig.
Hey, this one's chewing on the chair.
Und die Plumpsen. Einer wird jetzt wieder. Schlechte Idee.
I like this one all the way over here at the gate.
Yeah.
Ich möchte das auch können.
What is he saying, you know? And
she's in the other room.
That was so good. Another thing that is when I use this to show clients, you really can get an idea of how they feel about that correction. So a lot of people are, that's a kind of a common response is they feel bad. And that kind of tells you where they're coming from, in my opinion. You're like, oh shit, that's going to make this a little bit harder. If you get upset at the way nature does it, I think it's a harder lesson. It's harder to work with that.
Yeah.
Because you're having to come up with ways to get them to see why nature is always going to be better than we can do it, no matter what. It's not like we make the dolphins and the orcas happier by putting them in a big tank and clicking and throwing them fucking sardines, right? Yeah, we don't know better. And that's the whole thing, is that we've got to take elements of what makes sense to them. And the other thing too that I use is, like I said, this to me is like one of the best videos that could be used, is that, so the next question I'll start to point out, or what I'll use to help people understand, is I go, so check out what these puppies were living in. I go, and as soon as they're taken from this, they're going to go be the center point of somebody's house. And they're going to become that mother right away because they don't know any better. And they're going to get this vacuum of, there's no mom anymore. Right. So that little interaction just went away right there at 8 weeks old. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't happen anymore. The only thing that happens is that excitement that was at the beginning gets nurtured, but not that part. And I did a post the other day on that. For some reason, these theme of videos of like kind of fucking with your dog and seeing what they do is there's being posted, and some of them are just dumbasses, and some of them I think have no ill intent, but there's like an element of I don't know and ignorance. And this girl's got a pity puppy, and she's like, "What does my dog have beef with?"
Oh, I saw that.
She like holds things in front of it, and she does all these different things. And I've kind of watched it and get a little bit more confident. It's excitable. It's an excitable dog. It's gaining confidence. Like, to me, it looks like a pretty happy-go-lucky type of dog, but she's really fucking with its uncertain side. And she keeps doing it. And then you'll see that when she points at it, it always grabs her hand. And it's starting to get more bold, more bold, more bold. And it's like, it's just the exact opposite of what we just watched. Like that you would intentionally erode trust doesn't make sense in the animal world. Like, a mother would never intentionally erode trust. And somebody had asked me the other day, why are dogs so anxious? And I was like, well, you have breeding. Think about the level of breeding, how shitty it is, and that everybody is just getting male and female together, like the quality of the dogs and stuff. So, yeah, I love that.
There's a woman that, speaking of that, and it's kind of off topic, but since you brought that up about breeding, there's a woman here locally who was looking into the percentage of inbreeding within dogs. And she basically kind of randomly asked people on Facebook, hey, can you send me your Embark DNA test, like your DNA? And one of the results that you get is a percentage of inbreeding. It's like COI, coefficient of inbreeding, COI. And it was pretty interesting how she was basically saying that breeds today, they only have a select amount of dogs to choose from that have been not inbred. So if you get like a golden retriever or something, then there's so much inbreeding that's happened already that you basically have to figure out how to lower that. So her goal right now, because she breeds King Cavalier Spaniels, whatever. Yeah. And so her goal right now is to lower that and start breeding dogs with a lower percentage with less inbreeding.
I believe I had heard that the English Bulldog breed, due to what you just said, is now technically extinct. The pureness of the breed, because I think it's been completely contaminated, like by what you just described, of like elements of every, like of an inbreeding problem, because it got very popular and that happened to it. That's crazy to think. Well, when people have sent me some of these crazy DNA tests that they got from their dog, and you're like, how could there even be a Chihuahua in that? I've always been curious of like, where does their sample come from to determine what their golden retriever is? It is 100% pure, or somewhere down the line, something mixed with something else that kind of pops into the test, right? As what they're using as their baseline to measure it with. I've always been curious about that, how they know that they've got pure samples to measure.
Have you ever done one of those DNA tests before? Mm-hmm. So I did one years ago. I had this dog named Bruce, and he was a greyhound. He looked like a greyhound, but his snout wasn't as long. He was like every day was leg day for this guy. He was swole. He was a big dude. And so we did a DNA test, and I felt like he was mixed with something. And so basically I got a DNA test, and I just wanted to see what he was. And it said 99.9% greyhound, 0.1% unknown. That's it.
I wonder if that's just statistically what they have to put. I mean, does it ever say 100%?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any purebred dog except he was probably the most purebred dog I had. Um, so
I bet Hercules is probably my most purebred. I know Mr. Pickles is mixed with a couple of things. And Blue's a couple of things. Maggie's a couple of things. All my dogs have been a couple of things.
yeah, and I've done the like my other dogs, I've done like the DNA test. Matter of fact, Frankie before he passed away, so I did a DNA test. Let's see, 2022. And I basically just was curious to see what he was and stuff like that. And I ended up finding his litter mate because they do it like 23andMe where they can find, relatives. And I found his litter mate, and the woman reached out to me, and she originally lived in Dallas. She had adopted the dog from somebody, and we just kind of like tried to trace our steps back. But anyway, she came up to Dallas and brought her dog up to us, and it was like,
did they act like they knew each other?
No.
That's what I was gonna say. Do you think on some scent level or some natural level they know?
Maybe it's like we expect this, like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in forever kind of thing, and this reunion. No, it was very anticlimactic. It was like, well,
beat the shit out of each other.
They were just like, it's just another dog, like, whatever,
Let me ask you this: do you think? All right, so you have your dogs, right? So pick any one of the dogs, the dog that's the closest to you. Do you think that when your dad comes over, that dog knows that's family to you?
It's a really good question.
My dogs have seen, at least maybe this is my mind, I've acted kind of particular with my dad. And I don't know if, my dad just, if there's a similar behavioral element that it is, or if there's like a familiarity to them, like they can tell it's family, be it whatever it is.
I will say that my little terriers that I had loved my sister, loved my nephew, like always wanted to be with them, and those are the ones that were close to me, the three that passed my little rat pack, little rat terrier pack that I used to have. But yeah, and Emma, she loved my sister. Every time my sister was around, she was like, I'm going to go hang out with her. Because she was also very like, she has a really soft energy. And then I think she just loved being around my sister just because of the fact that it was like a feminine energy, around. And so I don't know. That's
we got, I read around the comments about that podcast we did, and they were like, well, how does it relate to the dogs? So we can always throw that in, like how a dog relates to feminine or masculine, or you can even throw in playful. There's always that. So I found it interesting that it always seems to be a full contrast or a total match will both work. Like sometimes like a really dominant dog likes a really submissive dog, and sometimes they like a really dominant dog. And it's like, you know what I mean? It seems to be if it's a little kind of similar but off, it's problematic. I don't know. It's trying to. It's always impossible to kind of gauge that. Did you have any? Did you have any serious cases recently? I'm in a run of them right now. You know how shit runs in spells? Yes. Like you'll get a whole month of separation anxiety, and then a whole month of puppies and stuff like that. I'm on like serious duty. Everything's got a real element of finality and seriousness to it. There's high aggression, a couple of killed dogs, and it's
I've been having, believe it or not, a lot of families with children
where the dogs are having issues with the kids,
where they've bitten the kids.
And what's been going on? What did we talk about that kid that was killed last time on the podcast?
And we had talked about that, and then I had a run of 3 different families from all over the U.S. reach out, and I gave them options like I normally do. There was one that I was like, you probably should rehome that dog. Like it's because it was also biting them.
I mean, what do you have at that point? And we talked about that. It's like, at what point is it unfair for the humans to continue being in a situation that has a danger element for you and your family? I mean, it's a fine line because some people will sacrifice everything from the emotional safety side to keep a dog from having to go through being given up or put down. And some people are way quick to pull the trigger under like the shortest circumstances. But it seems like it's taboo area to talk about. And,
Yeah.
It's interesting how I mean, we have to deal with this. We deal with some of the more serious cases. So we have to talk about this. I never make a choice for anybody, but I definitely try to make it clear what you have.
And then the other one the family that I spoke to actually was just a husband. And because the wife wasn't there, and my question is, how does your wife feel about all of this? And he said, my wife does not want the dog anywhere near the kids. And then I was like, well, decision's been made.
Yep.
If you want anything, you want me to confirm anything, then yes, just go with your wife on this one, because you cannot have your dog live under a roof when a family member does not want the dog in there. It's not fair to the dog. She was already very clear, no, the dog cannot be around in this house.
You always have to get the person to suddenly be like, all right, have you ever been in an environment where you're not wanted? Like, how does that feel? It's an incredibly uncomfortable place to be when you are living in an intimate environment and something in that environment does not want you there, right? I mean, that's just odd. It's just a really awkward energy. And the dog's definitely not going to do well with that.
And it's interesting also, I was the second person he talked to. He's like, yeah, I'm just kind of getting opinions from different people. And I was like, what did the first person say? Because I was the second one. He's like, pretty much the same thing. And I was like, who was it? Somebody I didn't know. But then I actually had, I said, hey, you might want to reach out to Eileen. She does a whole program on, kids and babies. See what she says. So I give him her contact information to kind of talk about that. So.
Yeah, they start to get too waffly about it, and they can't really make a call. I had, I did an online appointment they adopted a dog. It came in and killed a small dog. So it's a German Shepherd. Killed a small dog. And then it almost killed 3 others. And it would take the dog after it grabbed it, and it would take it to a bed, leave it on the bed, guard the body. I mean, it was doing some weird shit and pretty primal shit.
That's the word I was thinking. I was like, that's some pretty primal shit right there.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm envisioning what this is, and I'm like, what's the plan? Are you keeping the dog? What's the deal? And what are you trying to create? Because the dog gets along with the big mastiff outside. It's gotten in a fight with another dog, and they bring it in, and it's actually, to the humans, it's really submissive. It's not. It's excited submissive. It's being disrespectful in this. It's kind of it's pushing on them, but it's submissive. It's exactly like Blue. It was a all tan Blue, so it was a shepherd, and it was crazy. And the other thing that comes to mind is, how the fuck did it happen 4 times?
It's like that one in TCW, that one guy.
Oh, did we talk about that on this?
Yes, I think we did.
We did. That was nuts, dude. Where that 4 in a row. Yeah, that's crazy. But that's kind of what this was. Yeah. But this happened fast. This all happened in the course of a few days, in a very small amount of time.
4 of their own dogs?
Over years. But this all happened in it was a week or 2. They had just recently adopted the dog. They've only had the dog no more than a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And I mean, it's I was explaining to them that no matter what you do, everything's got to double up. You got to have, it's like a dog park. You got to have a gate you close before you can open up another gate, and then that one's got to be closed, because management mistakes are always going to happen. And if you're relying on management to keep your dog safe, it's like the whole kid thing. Mm-hmm. A dog like that in little tiny dogs is it's a dog that's going to bite kids. I mean, your management's going to fail. You are going to make a mistake, and because life works that way. It's not a knock on any human. And boy, in my opinion, it gets almost levels of disrespectful to the current family dogs, to, like we were just saying earlier, to expose them to that level of danger unless you're ready to deal with it.
So how many dogs do they have total?
It's 4 or 5.
So they have one left.
And they got this dog. I think they got this dog for protection. It didn't kill him. It killed one.
Oh.
It almost killed the others. Yeah, it killed one.
Wow.
But the others were close.
Wow.
And then they got in a fight with a friend's dog. But I think it sounded like the Mastiff started that when this one just joined in. So they got this dog, I think, to guard the land and that they're on. And so interesting. And I had one where there was a pack attack that killed a dog, but I wasn't able to go to it. Something had to be rescheduled. But I have that one coming up too. So that's what I meant. But I'm in the middle of a bunch of serious ones. So I have this one coming up. And this lady has, I think, 10 dogs. There was a fight. One of the dogs was killed. And then I also had a case of an older lady has a big pit bull that's become aggressive to people. And the daughter was going to bring the dog to see what my opinion was about, what could be done. And she, there's very little positive if it doesn't work out. And that's another one that's coming up, but it's been kind of like that. And even the puppies I've been getting, like I had somebody show up with a puppy yesterday. One of my neighbor's family members got a Belgian Malinois puppy, and I see him walking up the street with like a 20-foot leash, and me and Jen are on the patio. Oh, happy Father's Day, by the way. And I look and I go, oh my God. I go, do you see that fucking puppy? I go, good night. And they happen to be coming over here and they walk over with this thing. I'm like, oh God, you guys. And it's already, they got 3 kids. Dog's already like not biting, but you know how these puppies get where that intensity, and they'll do it on your leg and they'll do it on your shit. So it's like, even the puppies I've been getting, I had a little Shiba Inu puppy named Foxy Cleopatra that was so dominant, it was disturbing. And it was crazy, dude. Like it would start to do something, and I would like, hey, I would touch it, hey. And then it would spin around, and I had a harness, and I would take it and I would pick it up. And as soon as you'd pick it up, I'd start going 100 miles an hour, screaming as loud as it could.
Dogs, Todd.
Like I had to take it inside. Holy shit, dude! This thing was nuts.
It's
funny how that happens.
Shiba Inus are really vocal, like with anything.
Oh, dude, this thing! I brought Hercules out. Hercules is, he's a super confident dog. This dog just stood on his back, just jumped up and stood on his back. It was like, who the fuck are you? He's like 9 weeks old. Stood on his back. It was like, no, bitch. And Hercules corrected him. Didn't care. He came back. It was, again, one of those dogs that being able to kind of see into the future, you feel bad for the people. I'm like, look, does the breeder have another one you can try again with? Because this isn't going to, the dad's chronically ill at home. Got a young son, a chronically ill dad. Wife is running the show, and we have a dog that's strong enough to run for president at like 9 weeks old.
That's not saying much now.
No, it's true. They re-released. Do you remember all the bites that Biden's dog did?
I saw that.
They said that at the time that it was recorded like 11 and 8.
More than that.
I started to do a post and I couldn't get it out, but the post I did said so. They're claiming 18. I go, there's got to be at least 3 times. They just said there was, I think, 44,
something like that,
or sorry, 38,
dude,
something like that.
How did that even happen? I don't care who's president. And like, how did that happen?
3 hospitalizations with stitches. That was exactly my thought, is that in no other situation on the planet would the civil services not have stepped in and taken that dog and made decision about it. Animal control would have come in. I mean, that's even when they may show up with the warrant when you start to hit in your 30s. And I guess the president was there present for a few of these bites.
That's debatable.
And the amount of what is it? Is it ignorance or arrogance? What is it? Well, I mean, what the fuck is that? That's just absolute lack of common sense.
Yeah, I saw that news article and I was like, wow, that's bad.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to him. They had to have put that dog down. There's no way that dog's living on a farm somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah, I didn't read that part. I don't know what that dog's doing, but it's funny because they did a whole thing like, oh, he adopted a rescue dog and this and that, but then they get another one and it's doing the same thing.
And it's biting everybody in the same place. You can just see it. Like these guys always have to go in and touch the president. They always have to go in and put their arm on him, and they have to grab his hand, there's forearm, and they have to move him around. And so they're always reaching in. I mean, what is literally one of the hardest things we ever deal with, let's say at TCW, is you get these protective dogs and you go reach in and take the leash or go reach in and hug the owner. And they always want to jump up and grab the closest thing, which is that hand coming in. I mean, the majority of the bites were on the forearms of these guys.
Yeah.
There was one of the female Secret Service agents was hospitalized. She got ripped up her forearm, I believe. There was some stitches involved, multiple bites in one situation. Crazy.
It is.
Imagine having to go to work with that, man, knowing that you really got a good chance you're getting whacked today by the president's German Shepherd if they're in the office.
See, it was smart on Bill Clinton to have a cat.
He's friendly. He's friendly. Come on in. You can put him. You can just hear it. And like if you got a call, like imagine it's always if you get a call from somebody like this, it's the kid. So like Hunter would call you. Hunter would call you like, hey, my dad's got a dog and it's kind of biting people. Can you help? How many times has it bit? I don't know, like 40.
What? 40? Man.
Imagine taking that call from Hunter, trying to get dog training for his parents' dog who's bit 40 times.
Dude, that's insane. I just saw that last week. I was like, wow.
What would you say? What would you say to somebody that called you up that told you that their German Shepherd has bit 40 times, hospitalized 3 people at least?
You can't. I don't even know. I know Caesar was trying to get try to work with them or something like that, but
Steve did a couple of great posts on it last year when it was coming to the surface. Everybody gets their panties in a wad, but he was showing some good photos too that you can see the seriousness in the puppy.
Yeah.
Like back, I think people need to surrender to the fact that if you have enough experience with dogs, your puppies are like a crystal ball. Like you can look at your puppy and really gauge what's going to be happening in a lot of ways, especially if there's no intervention in 6 months or a year. Like that Belgian I saw yesterday. There's no way that thing's going to be a lap dog. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not going to be a lap. That thing's not going to be like, oh my God. No. It was literally, if it was a ball, it rolled towards everything as fast as it could. It didn't matter what it was. And it was a young puppy. Everything that drove by, everybody that walked up, everything that made sounds, it just ran right up to it. Like, wow.
By the way, there was something you said about that older woman and the pit bull that you're going to be meeting with. And you said something. You said that they asked you, or I guess in the conversation that you said, they said,
I don't make decisions for them.
Well, what you said was, we're going to see what can be done. But I think the question should be, what are they going to do? Like, what can we educate them on what they need to do? Because if it's a high energy dog and it's an older woman, the dog's not being fulfilled mentally, physically, what are we even doing at this point? You know what I mean? Like, what was the story on the pit bull?
I don't know a lot of details. I don't take the calls.
Oh, Jen.
So I just kind of see the notes. And from what I understand, it's just that this is a daughter, just like we were just saying. This is a daughter calling for her older mom, and this is a pit bull that's bit a couple of times. I don't know the circumstances behind the bites. The mom and the daughter don't feel like she can control the dog, and that it feels dangerous and out of control for them. And they wanted to know what my opinion was on the situation. And so those are tricky because, total honesty is, you don't have control. It's a dangerous situation, exactly as you described. That's why you described it that way. So here's what's possible. I've always taken in whatever case like this, you need to have a date somewhere, which is like a date of decision where you are deciding that things are working and we're continuing with what we're doing, or they're not working, and these are the choices that we have in front of us, but this is the date we make them. Because it's easy to just kind of meander on and on and on, right? And so I've always encouraged, and I go, it's up to you how long you want to give it. It can be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It can be 3 months. But just my experience is that you won't make a decision if you don't create an end point And now you get a chance to see if you can take new information and make change. And reality is that if I was telling this lady yesterday, if in 10 days you don't see improvement in the way this puppy is in its relationship interacting with you, you're not going to. I think it's a bit of a myth that this connection part is this ongoing, long drawn out process. Yes, it can always be improved, but I think there's a pretty powerful innate part to some of these connections, right? That if you have to make a huge personality shift to make the connection, is that realistic? Are you going to be able to maintain that? Are you going to be able to act like a completely different human for the sake of this dog from now and the next 12 years? That's the part that is reality. If you can, great. Here's what it is. This is what you need to do.
Yeah. I've been working with this dog right now. Actually, I take that back. I worked with this dog in 2021, and this dog they had 2 other dogs, and this dog had gotten into a fight with one of the other dogs in the house. And we worked with them and supported them and I got it to a pretty decent place. I would say that I didn't feel like 100% like comfortable if they could handle it. And so they pretty much just do crate and rotate now, right? So they went out of town and they said, "Hey, can you board our dog?" I was like, "Sure, yeah." I really like this couple, and they show up, and the dog's chill like normally is. And I noticed on the collar, it's like a really thick collar, and it has the dog's name and the phone number, but it also says reactive on there.
Yeah. So you were saying
they dropped this dog off, and dog's pretty calm like it's always been. But I looked at the collar, and the collar has the dog's name, the owner's phone number, and it also says reactive on there. And I was like, at what point do the owners leave the dog stuck where they're at? I literally took this. I took the dog on a walk, right? Because they're saying that. I mean, who's going to read that from a distance, right? Like, oh, your dog's reactive. Let me go the other way. Like, no one's going to see this, And it's not like they take the dog out in public. It's not like a do not pet, but it's almost like you label the dog that says that I'm reactive and therefore I'm going to be reactive. Where I took this dog on a walk and I don't think about those things. And this dog has been absolutely amazing. Like, so good. Got around my dogs, was a little tense around some of my dogs, but nothing, I kind of just kept the dog moving. I took it to our dog social on muzzle. That's because it does have a bite history. Did fine. Like,
you definitely create the identity you always talk about, right? I think that's super true. When I had only been going a little bit of time, somebody dropped the dog off, and they dropped it off with a letter. And I went out and took the dog for a walk, just like you always do when you first get a dog. And I came back in and I read the letter, and it said, "This dog can't walk under trees. It's too afraid to walk under trees." And like, I just walked through my neighborhood, which is just full of trees. Like, I just walked under, I couldn't tell you how many trees, dozens of trees. And it's the same thing you just said. And it's like, I think it's hard to quantify that part of you get what you talk about or you see and what you anticipate. And I think maybe it's even happening on levels of communication, like almost unconsciously. Like the dog there's picking up on something. It's a vibe of something. Maybe it's just a little bit of tension in the leash. The dog can tell. We've never walked ourselves at the end of a leash to really know the nuance of how it feels to be at the end of our emotional changes. Do you know what I mean? And so if you've put reactive on your dog's collar, imagine what you probably do when a dog approaches.
Or when they name the dog, Killer or El Chapo, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I've always taken dogs and made sure, like, I remember a big old German Shepherd. I forget what its name was, but I called it Buddha. I switched it to like peaceful names. I always want to remember peaceful things.
For food.
But I think that's the trick of all, is to be able to reprogram that. It's a nuance of the way the brain works too. I think the show The Biggest Loser is a good one to use for an example here. Like, when you put somebody in an ideal situation, the brain can easily change and adapt to that, right? So you get all these coaches in this ideal environment, and you lose weight. These people lose weight. They do great. But then they go home and their brain is reminded by all the little nuances of life. And the dog is going through the exact same thing, right? The dog goes into your house, and it's just like if you go stay in a hotel, it's super easy to change your evening routines. It's the easiest to change them in a new environment. For me.
Me too.
Right. So the dog is in the same situation, right? So it goes into your house. Now everything's new, and it happens to be with somebody that's going to be well in tune to everything that it may not be used to. I mean, everything. And that's like the way you deal with the positive and the negative. It's just, it's a whole different thing. It's The Biggest Loser.
Mm-hmm.
It's that vibe. It's like almost, the dog's not there purposely for that, but that the environment that we create, that I know you create, triggers an easier ability for the dog to go, okay, hey, what happens next? As opposed to, hey, come with me, this happens next. Yeah.
Do you think that I'll go back to that original video that we watched? One of the things that I noticed also, that when you go back and watch it, and we can even link the video in the show notes also. So if you guys want to watch the video, you guys can go watch it. You can start to see when we talk about pack position. We've had an episode about pack positions. You can kind of see like which one calms down the quickest, right? And so if people are going to pick a dog, it'd be really good to know which one you could pick. It's the one that you could settle down the quickest. It's the one that keeps getting up that I would probably not take, because I mean, they're all pretty excited, don't get me wrong, but that one, there was like one or two that she had to address more than the other ones. The others were like, I'm just going to stay back here. I'm just going to chew on this chair back here. And you can kind of see like the different pack positions, even at that young of age.
I did a little breakdown of a video of a dogo Argentine. I think it's a dogo with a litter of puppies. And it looks like a young,
I know which one you're talking about.
Weak, inexperienced mom.
Yeah.
And that mom is almost antagonistic.
Yeah.
It's like she can't control it. And she keeps trying, and the puppy's like fuck you in her over and over again. And like, that's a recipe for having a really forward puppy very early if you're defying the strongest energy you technically know, it's like saying no to an e-collar. What's next? And I think that's one of the problems with weak breeding nowadays, is that you end up in situations oftentimes where it's not an emotionally fit mother. Like, to me, that golden retriever was a very emotionally fit mother.
Right.
I mean, really, you can tell that wasn't the first litter. It's not her first time. She knew exactly what to do. I mean, the owners even knew exactly what was going to happen. That's why they were positioned. That they set that up from the beginning. It wasn't like a surprise. We didn't talk about the growling, like the auditory, the warning. Mm-hmm. Right. So like later on, that there doesn't have to be touch and all that other shit. There's just that.
Right.
And it means all the rest of that's going to happen. So let's just get to it.
Well, it was because she did like a bark and a touch at that moment. So that sound and the touch mean the same thing. So she's able to make a growl to get the same result without having to touch all the time. And I think that's really important to also bring up, because, a lot of times when I see it a lot, when people do a touch and sound, but that's all they do. They don't ever just do sound, like the auditory. And I think that can become very redundant. And then the dogs start anticipating it, because the element of surprise is gone now, right? So the element of surprise is gone. So it's really important that if people do that, like that, there is an element of surprise, that you bring in a sound that's attached to that action. So as you move forward, all you have to do is just the sound. And that's all she had to do.
Or you go into a house and all they're using is sound.
Yeah.
Right? And like that. The pet corrector, a great correction for kind of sound sensitive dogs. But the people who make it work, typically, it only worked for a week. Well, yeah, because you didn't do follow through. You only did the first part of that. You didn't do the follow through that the mother did. So just like you said, it becomes a diminished understanding. And even though it worked for a short time, that's why I think one of the most powerfully misunderstood. You asked me a couple of weeks ago, what do people misunderstand? And, we're talking about boundaries. I think a correction is grossly misunderstood. Of really truly what it is, and the power of the follow through, which is the correction. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets caught up on whatever the technique was. Like I tell people, look, you can use sound, you can use smell, you can use physical pressure, you can use touch. I've used all three, and all three can work. You got to use what works, and it's weird when it comes to that touch part, that pressure part. Mm-hmm. That's where everybody starts to get their little things in a wad, and and it all goes sideways. You know what I mean? And I think those corrections are super misunderstood.
I think that at the last TCW, I was like, look, because I was seeing a lot of people, like the students, trying some things, and I would stop them. I'm like, hey, if you're gonna do that, make sure you do it right, because you're not doing it right. If you're gonna do it this way, if you do want to touch, then you need to touch and add a sound and follow through with it. Because just like when you talk about the peckaments, I always tell people, like, it's to get their attention. You're not done yet. Then you have to address it. Then you can address. Then you come in. Then you can add your own sound. Like, so when they finally, like, what the heck was that? And they settle. Then at that moment you go shh. So now that settling, the sound means settle, right? And so we do it, at Caesars all the time. We're in the dog park, and like their dog's going crazy. We all kind of just start moving with them, and their dog's like, well, what am I supposed to do here? And then they settle, and we go shh. So the next time we start getting worked up, from a distance we go shh, and the dog's like, am I not supposed to do that? I'm like, no, not right now. You're getting too excited, So because
because we connect it to something more permanent, and then it works also from a distance. You got a funny freeze right there. Yeah, and that's it. So then you get as far away pretty much as your dogs can hear you after a time. That, hey, for me, that's my sound. That kind of, for the most part. Yeah. Although, what sucked is the other day I had a weird run-in with a cat that was injured. I had to take and have it put down. It was really sad. But at the exact same time that my dogs discovered the cat, there was a coral snake. And I could tell Blue was on something. And I walked up and caught the tail, caught it, and went, shit. And I couldn't, hey, go. I couldn't get a good enough response at that time. I wish I would have had an e-collar on her. Those coral snakes are terrible.
They're venomous, right? Coral snakes are venomous?
Dude, we have a guy that milks snakes for the anti-venom around here. And we've gone and seen him a couple of times. He says they're in the cobra family. They're a cobra without the hood. I didn't know that. So yes, they are. They're venomous. We have quite a few. We get pygmy rattlers. We get rattlesnakes. There's several people out here whose dogs have been bit by pygmy rattlers, and they just give them like Benadryl. The owners of this Chesapeake Retriever that I have here, the owners have lost a dog to a snake bite.
Yeah, I had a client that lost a dog to a rattlesnake bite.
Yeah, so that's the rattlesnakes are the ones that normally create the fatalities, because they can get pretty big and venomate them quite a bit.
I heard that that the rattlesnakes are, because usually sometimes they're like relocate them or kill them, and so they're killing off all the snakes that have the rattlers, and the ones that don't have rattlers, and they're not getting caught because nobody hears them, and so those are the ones that are starting to breed.
Interesting how Darwin steps in, right?
Even when work against Mother Nature.
Well, that's dangerous, man. Because now you'll see there'll be an uptick in rattlesnake bites, because that's why you get bit by any snake, is you step on it, dude. It's not because you go fucking look for it, and it's because you step on it. And so rattlesnakes don't move fast. They actually move really, really slow. I have a video I should show you right now of like a 4-foot diamondback going into the lot next door to us, like 4 or 5 years ago. And just last year we saw a little baby rattlesnake. So I know that thing's still there, and those things move slow. So if it's so easy to step on them, and they're so camouflaged and blended in, and so it's no joke with snakes. You have to, especially with a dog. I give the dogs enough freedom that I'm definitely opening a risk to things like that. And I know I've heard a couple people talk about snake training, and what it takes. And if you're in the area, I think it's a smart move. Yeah. Using the nose, eyes, ears, and you got to get somebody that really knows what they're doing. I think Lynn talks about how he used to do that. I think with Caesar way back in the day, or they did it, or they had somebody do it way back in the day.
In that case, you definitely want to keep the dog in avoidance. So.
Oh, dude, 1,000%, right? I mean, you can't. And again, I got that question the other day. Somebody was asking me, they thought their dog was going to kill the cat. And I'm like, well, here's the deal. You can kind of make it work if you do management really good and you do like a correction like that. But at some point, when the dog realizes there's nothing regulating it in the absence of acceptance,
right,
you run the risk of something aggressive. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, it all comes down, if you can't trigger acceptance, you don't really have true safety.
Yeah. But that's actually another really good point, because, with the rattlesnake avoidance, like training, what's called, like they intentionally leave the dogs in avoidance. That's the whole point. You don't ever want to get them to acceptance, Yep. Now, when we're working, like, with, say, family members, and I see a lot of times, like those franchise e-collar companies, they work with a dog that's reactive and they blast the dog on an e-collar. And so now the dog is, the owners, like, the owners are, wow, my dog's doing so much better, doesn't react to dogs. Well, it's not because it's not reacting. It's just having a different reaction. It's an avoidance. I don't want to go near that thing. The true skill comes when you're able to get that dog into an acceptance state of the thing that triggers them. That is where it's missing. That is the work that I believe is missing. And getting to that point can be not challenging, but it just takes some work, right? So, they are moving towards something, and then something comes in that creates the avoidance part, but they're not finished yet. And a lot of times people leave them unfinished. They leave them at an avoidance. As Caesar would say, they're stuck. They're stuck.
Avoidance will fight. Yep. That's the thing. So it's you just said that really well, because I remember hearing from a client one time, they're like, the trainer handed me this e-collar and said, when he looks at that other dog, blast him. It's like, that's really good if you never plan on getting your dog around other dogs, and all your goal is to walk your dog down the street quietly, but never interact with other dogs. Fine. But if you have any intention of getting your dog to accept whatever it is you're correcting it around, just like you said, if you create avoidance, that is not acceptance. To me, it's the most effective on something that's like creates safety issues, like the snakes or other animals that you will never have your dog interact with. Rabbits, deer, like shit like that. You know what I mean? Like a correction that creates avoidance, fine. But outside of that, I don't really use e-collars in any capacity when I'm doing dog work.
Me either.
That is not, to me, and if I'm using it for a fundamental such as the leash, not the way it's reacting towards the other dog. So I'm using it for something that might give me something and like give me control of the reaction, but I'm not using it to control the reaction. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. And this is the way I interpret it, because I feel like there's a lot of times people will talk about, using the e-collar with, like low level, which I'm all for. I learned from Mark Goldberg, who has a book on riding e-collar, which I'm all for. However, what I've noticed is that, like, and I have one of my dogs, like Buddha here, I use it for off-leash stuff. Like when we go hiking, I can always call him back, it's just something where I can use it for. But like sometimes if a dog is starting to, I don't know, counter serve or something like that, sometimes I'll use it. I will use it like in those situations, but I do it so that the dog never has to wear an e-collar ever again. But I don't do it also so that they avoid the kitchen. I do it in a way that gets the dog's attention, but has an association with jumping up, but not to the point where it wants to get out of the kitchen, in the sense of like, I just want it all fours on the floor, right? And so, but I do it. Here's the thing, like, I don't want the dog to become collar smart. I don't want the dog to be only use, only act a certain way when it has a collar on, right? And so,
well, that's, yeah.
And so this is like, that could be a whole topic on a whole other episode about, the differences on using, e-collars and this and that. Like,
I will tell you that, I have never seen Caesar use it for obedience.
Right.
Have you? No. I think, to me, it's functionally speaking, like if I were to say, what would be, if you could give the e-collar to somebody for one functional thing, what would it be? I would say to replace the way the leash is used on the walk. Because I think it's the easiest thing to replace. Careful, there's a water bowl there, sweetheart. To replace the physical pressure of the leash. Do you know what I mean? I think for the clarity of that, I think it's fantastic. if you need off leash, like if you want to let your dog out, but you can do it without. But that you have that, and then like you're talking about, using it for low level or low to medium level infractions. I say I like to use it when the dog is powerful, obsessive, or fast. Right. So when you're dealing with physical strength, that's what I mean. Like on the walk, you're dealing with the dog that's picking a lot of stuff off the ground, counter surfing, moving quick, and it would be difficult to address all of those things, but you're in that phase of wanting to get freedom. Or a dog that, like I said, is just a bit obsessive. You put them outside and they bounce at the door, or that type of stuff. I think it's great for those things. I'm not a fan for the obedience behind it.
Yeah.
I think it takes too much to learn how this really works for an owner to be effective with it outside of a couple of basic things. And what I tend to see is if anybody's been through a board and train, that all they end up doing is turning it up.
Yeah.
So you show up and they're using it like a 40 for basic obedience because they've missed the timing. It just hasn't been used well. So I've kind of found a way I like to introduce it for owners to use.
Also, I don't know if you remember this, but when we did that train the trainers, remember how what I was really amazed about how Caesar used the e-collar, he still used nose first. Like he was like, I don't know how he did it, but it was something with horse poop or something like that. How he does it where he's not like attached to it, how he gets the dog to move forward a certain way. Like all the thing was nose first. It was pretty fascinating how he had this whole concept. I remember watching, I was like, man, that's pretty amazing. You remember that? Like how he had Steve.
I also remember him doing stuff like it with your dog and the goats.
Yes.
Because he had done an imprint earlier before that, like what you were talking about, something with nose, and then we went in to do that. And that's the whole thing about the rattlesnakes is you do it in layers. Yeah. You do nose, eyes, and ears in the aversion. It's not just one; it's the three.
Yeah. Well, that one he did eyes on that one with Luna, with the goats.
Oh, because it was predatory.
But then he ended it with nose to do the acceptance. And by the way, she's still great to this day with the goats. It's freaking amazing.
Oh, seriously?
It's like amazing. She's getting old though.
Yeah, I have to say some of the way he layers those things together has always been you're just like, wow, just wow.
Yeah.
Somebody ripped him apart on a post on a comment today. They're like, my dog was so much worse after I tried his techniques. I didn't say anything, but I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm sure you did it right. And I can't believe he's still allowed to practice dog training. Got it.
Well, anyways.
Social.
Thanks,
right, man.
Good talk. And by the way, we just today, they got released on the platform that we use to record this, which you're on. We can now stream or live stream on multiple platforms, so not just like YouTube. I think we can even do like Instagram also. So
okay.
When we do our live, I think we should be able to put it on multiple platforms. So I'm pretty excited about it. When I got the news today, I was like, oh, this is amazing news.
Oh, sweet.
So we'll be able to do like multiple platforms to go live.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, everybody be good.
See you later.